Hi guys, continuing on with your analysis of your IA2. Now we're going to move on to the evaluation. Just before we do that, we will actually go back and make sure that you've done these two. Yep, so we just finished this one, was talking about the conclusion. Just make sure in your conclusion that you justify your conclusion using some evidence. Yep, and note that you can place it there straight after that data analysis, or you can put it at the end, whichever makes sense after the evaluation. So we're going back to now the evaluation, which is in here. Yep. So this is part of your analysis interpretations in here as well. So the first part of the evaluation, if you look at what you should be doing here, that was just your conclusion stuff, is you should be discussing the reliability and validity of the process of the experiment, not the data as such. That was done in the previous section. Yep. Where you looked at the uncertainty and limitations of the evidence, the actual data. This is now looking at the actual experiment process, the methods. So you've just finished this conclusion statement. Now you're going to evaluate reliability and validity of the experimental process. So you need to put comments, both good and bad, about the method of the experiment, what was fair or unfair. So method, obviously things you actually did. Yep. We're talking about this here. Yep. What were some of the good things that made it a fair test? So some statements about the validity. Yes, it was very valid because you had results that tended to indicate what you expected. It was very reliable because you had multiple bits of data and you got averages and things like that. If it wasn't, you also need to discuss that, and that's pretty important. Not just say, oh, it wasn't valid, it wasn't accurate. Yeah. If you go to this one here, which is on your sites, is that science writing guide one. Which is actually this one here, where it's got those useful words. If you keep going in that and scroll down, it actually has a bit more information. So in the evaluation, yep, reliability and validity of your experimental process. Yep. If you had high reliability, say what it was, tightly controlled, had a wide range of data for your independent variable, large number of bits of data, and so on. On the other hand, you believe it was limited, then you explain the factors that interfere with your experiment. So it didn't have a wide range of data. It didn't have many samples in your sample size. It wasn't well controlled. You didn't measure certain things accurately, or you didn't actually make sure you had exactly the same amount of yeast or the same amount of catalase in weigh it, things like that. The actual method of the experiment, why it was valid or reliable, or why it wasn't valid or reliable. Just justify your statements. Yep. And then after that, you've got to suggest improvements and extensions to the experiment which are logically derived. So now you're doing improvements and extensions related to not just the method, yep, but also the data. So you'd say, for example, this time you only had, yep, so you're talking about data as well here. First, you only had 4 bits of data to work with, and you probably need a minimum of 12, 3 of each sample size of each type. So if you're looking at yeast, how much oxygen you got produced, if you only did 2 test tubes of each temperature, well, probably better to do 4 of each, wouldn't it, or 6 of each, and then you get a lot more data. So your sample size could have been inaccurate. You'd suggest you have a bigger sample size and make a statement about that number. And what's it going to do? Increase your reliability of your average, things like that. Also, your process. Next time I want to get a mass balance and measure the amount of liver, so I've got exactly the same amount of liver going in, so therefore the oxygen coming out was a result of the temperature it was in, the differences, or the pH, not the amount of liver that was there. You might have tried to make them the same size, but did you weigh them? That would be something you could do. That will give you more accuracy. So some improvements to either the amount of data you got or what you actually did in the experiment that made it accurate or inaccurate. So how would you improve on it? And also it says to make an extension to the experiment. So why would you want to extend it? Yep. How could you improve this particular experiment? And how could you extend it to be a further investigation of this or a similar topic? And what are the benefits of doing that? So next time, I think we should do this. Yep. Because I think this will help us understand this in this way. So that is what you're doing in your evaluation. So not only saying what the actual, whether it was reliable or valid and why it wasn't, also suggesting improvements and extensions related to that. This is what I could do. This is why it would be better. This is what we should do next time. This is why it would be better. This is an extension. I want to do this with the experiment, and this is why it would be better. This is what it's going to tell me. So as long as you justify each of your improvements and extensions, you're going to get a good result there. So that whole thing, we're talking about conclusion, analysis, interpretation, all that is the majority of your, as you can see, the majority of your assessment is in that part there. Conclusion, 3 or 4 sentences, your analysis of your data and interpretation of that data, but also interpretation, evaluation of the actual data and of the method, and then improvements go in here, 200 words. So go and look at the sample one, just quickly go through it, use this one here, which I said was this one here. Use that one there as a really good guide. It's got more information than this one here, as to what should be in each section. Obviously then to finish off you need to have your references in there and your appendixes at the back. So hopefully that helps you. Remember it's due Monday week 2. So between watching these videos and just filling out your template, which is this, fill out your template step by step, you should be able to get that done. Make sure it's in your Google folder so teachers can check it as you go along and also give you some good feedback when it's due. Thanks guys.